Hi, I'm Nigel Kent,
And I'm Jasmine Starr.
and welcome to Trouble in Paradise.
Tonight, we're going to talk about the disappearance of the missing Cape Coral woman, Lauren Dumolo. We've covered it a couple times on previous episodes, but special tonight is we had a collaborative effort where we teamed up with the Paradise After Dark podcast, and they're a true crime podcast. This is right up their alley.
Mm-hmm.
Ken and Lauren, they have extensive background when it comes to covering murders, missing persons. This is right up at their genre. Lauren also has a background in criminal justice and considerable knowledge with the court system, and provided absolutely amazing insight, and also some very good questions. We also incorporated a little bit of my psychic read on the walk that we did that day.
And there's a video of that walk, a video that was constructed during the time of that walk. That's the previous video to this one on YouTube for anybody that's looking like for a real backgrounder on the case.
So, right before we dive into showing you our discussion that we had with the Paradise After Dark, you can contact us at Tipcast239 on Twitter, Trouble239 on Instagram, trouble at trouble239.com if you want to email us. Again, this is going to be a video only for us. So subscribe, follow Trouble in Paradise on YouTube. Any other audio versions, again, this won't be an audio for us, but we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher.
And our regular program is posted about twice a month over there on the audio side of life. And in the meantime, if you'd like to get a hold of Paradise After Dark, they're on all major podcast platforms. You can follow them at Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter. That's Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter. And follow them as a Patreon insider as well. They have tons of bonus content, including the audio version of the conversation that you're about to watch and listen to. So here we go.
I dug up a lot of information that I don't think is out there
Good.
about her past and some other things that we can get into when we talk about it. So,
well, I think we've kind of done the same, so it'll be interesting to
Comparing
see.
notes,
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing I think too, we should probably just put this right out there, is that for members of Lauren's family and friends of Lauren, people who are concerned with trying to get her recovered and trying to get this disappearance solved, that's also what the four of us are trying to do. So putting the information out there, trying to get to the bottom of these things is done with that goal in mind. And we hope to get Lauren recovered as a result of that.
Yeah.
right.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
Well, do you kind of want to do a rundown of the case since you've done the rundown already?
Yep.
And
Let me pull up my OneNote.
Yeah.
Some of this is going to be a little bit of a recap from the video that was posted yesterday, but as far as I know, nothing has changed. I've been watching the news today and I haven't seen anything new. So what we have basically is that we understand that Lauren was last seen by her live-in boyfriend, Gabriel Pena, at her apartment 8:30 in the morning, June 19th, or approximately 8:30. We also understand that that same day before 8:30, at around 8, an unidentified man, according to police, said that he saw Lauren at that time and waved at her. The man also said that the day before, Lauren asked him about available apartments, saying she, quote, wanted to get out of the situation she was in.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do we know where that man saw her? Did he see her at her apartment and wave at her, or where was she when he saw her at 8?
Good question. Don't know. I've been assuming, perhaps incorrectly, that it was at the park. since that seems to be the big crossroads of everything. But I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
June 19th, same day. We're still on the first day of this situation. Lauren's purse is found at Four Freedoms Park. Again, I don't think it's been stated what time of day that it was found, and I don't think it's been stated who found it. I think they said who found the shirt. I'm not certain they said who found the purse, but I could be wrong on that too. Next up, Lauren did not call her dad on Father's Day, which again is June 19th, which is extremely out of character for her, according to her dad. Her father calls and reports her missing on Tuesday, June 21st, after not being able to reach her. Police respond to her apartment for a well check and find her cell phone there. At that time, Cape Coral Police Department elevated Lauren's case to endangered because when somebody disappears voluntarily, they take belongings. In this case, it appears she did not. July 2nd, so this is now almost 2 weeks later, or approximately 2 weeks later. Her shirt is found at the park in plain sight. There's reports out there that say it was found on the sand. There's reports that say that it was found on the water line. And I don't have those links handy, but it was found at the park on July 2nd. The shirt, we understand, is definitely hers, as there are plenty of pictures of her wearing it that are out there on social media, namely Facebook. And then July 21st was the date of our visit to the park. And of course, we've been digging up all kinds of stuff to find out about the people that she was rolling with.
Well, can you tell us about your visit? I know I saw the interview that you guys did at the park with the gentleman and then the cameras. But what'd you guys find? What'd you guys think, or what did you find when you went to the park?
Did you want to step through your impressions?
My impression whenever, and actually,
real quick, Jasmine, before you go into that, can you kind of just for our listeners, introduce yourself and what you do?
I'm Jasmine Starr. I'm a psychic medium, and I have worked in the past with Southwest Florida Paranormal Investigations, which was part of TAP's family. And for anybody that watched sci-fi would know that TAPS was part of the ghost hunters that you would see on TV. So we would get the local referrals. So I worked with them for a couple years and then went on my own journey to develop. I live in a similar, or at the time lived in a similar area to where you are, and experienced quite a bit of activity in my home, which made me move from being an investigator to a client to learning how to work and develop this gift, because the first thing I was ever told was, you're an empath. And I had no idea that I was a psychic medium. So that's just a little bit about me.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just a computer nerd that enjoys citizen journalism, and this is out of our format too. That's why we called you guys, because you guys are the crime experts, and we're just like this. It's just the reason we wanted to get so deep into this is because we care. It's like it's our community, it's our area, and it's the story is quiet. It's too quiet. It's bizarrely quiet, and
it is. And there's a lot of stuff I feel like the I don't know if it's the authorities or the families really just kind of, I don't want to say holding back, but I feel like there's a lot of information that could be out, that could and maybe should be put out, that's not being put out, and I don't know why.
us too.
I would agree with you 100% there. And I think it's a combination of the two. I think there's an issue with the family and some of history. And some of that we've been able to, find some court records and stuff like that, may be a reason why some of that may be, a sensitive area for the family. And then that there's a possibility they may be a little bit closer to identifying their person of interest, and don't want them to necessarily know. So
That's what we're hoping.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So,
do you
back
want
to
to
the
give us
park.
what you were yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at the park, how she was feeling when she got to the park, what she felt.
When I first got to the park and I stepped outside of the car, and actually I hate to do this. I'm just going to back up a little bit because I had impressions before we ever left the house. And that's something that typically happens whenever, I'm preparing to do something. You kind of sometimes get like a little download of information. I did relay to Nigel that I was picking up on I was seeing a combination of apartments and also duplexes, and I couldn't necessarily get my bearings as to which direction I was necessarily going in relation to that with apartments and duplexes. With that, I had told him that I saw a black two-door, appeared to be an import style car, possibly a Honda Civic. I gave him a potential license plate of a KVM 873. Obviously, no way to research that on our end. We've
tried.
We've tried.
There is what appears to be a two-door black Honda Civic on the Google Maps Street View for her apartment. So
yes,
that was validating.
Yeah, that was definitely validating. Initially, when I got to the park and we stepped outside, I was directed initially to the apartments behind me and the general area, and wanting to walk down the sidewalk. And I looked at Nigel and I told him, I was like, I feel dizzy. I said, I feel like my pulse is starting to speed up. That gave me two feelings regarding that, which were a feeling of intoxication and also a feeling of like that adrenaline rush and fear. I feel like
something about a heavy head or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was dizzy and walking around. As we walked down the sidewalk, an old rap song from like the 90s, a particular lyric in general from the Lost Boys, popped into my head. And sometimes that'll happen, like little, like music references and stuff like that. But it's from a song called Renee, and the lyric that popped into my head has to do with where a woman drops a package of essentially rolling papers. I did notice throughout the walk too, because I also have to be conscious of my body language, that I was frequently kind of what I would consider pill rolling, or where I was doing that quite often with my fingers, as if I were rolling something in between them.
So there was that, and then when we got a little bit closer to the area where the shirt was purportedly found, you got another musical pickup, didn't you?
Yes, I did. As we were taking the walk down towards, there's like a small little beachy area, and I kind of got like a mixed message then. There's a sign there about sunbathing. And I felt as if there were like a joke that kind of went on between her and a male, in reference to kind of essentially nude sunbathing. Yeah. And but then, I really feel like this is potentially the energy of the father of Lauren's father. I would be curious, any feedback, if the song has meaning for them in some way or meaning to
The
Lauren.
song is Last Kiss.
It's Last Kiss by Pearl Jam.
Well, they covered it. I don't know who the original artist is.
But you know, the lyrics, oh, where, can my baby be?
Mm-hmm.
The Lord's
that's
taken her away from me. And I just had this feeling of just like sadness and just utter despair as I was walking down towards the water.
And then we didn't get too much further when we were approached by this gentleman.
And that was a very odd approach, because a gentleman, I was a little bit further from Nigel, and a gentleman walked over to me and he said, "Are you here for Lauren?" Mm-hmm. And just a complete stranger that claims to not be any family or friend of Lauren's.
He did ask us if we knew the family.
Yep.
We told him that we didn't.
Very interested, wanted to know what we knew. And
he speculated quite a bit too. We talked to him for about 15 or 20 minutes, I'd say. And he had a couple of stories that were plausible and at least one that we kind of don't think is real plausible at all. And that's that she left on her own to kind of disappear herself. We don't think that that's the case.
I don't feel that way either.
But is that the extent of the feedback that you got that day, or was there anything else?
I think that day essentially there was. Aside from that, other impressions I got, I feel like that she willingly left, thinking that she was going to come right back. I feel like the person she knew, she willingly got into the car. I feel like that, you know, when they talk about crime scenes, you never leave the first crime scene. And I feel like the first crime scene was, I do feel like an assault took place at the park. However, the actual crime to follow happened at a different location. Mm-hmm. I do feel like she was taken from that location. And it's at that point that, you know, the story kind of takes a little turn.
Mm-hmm. So I think that
now, when you have your feelings, things like that, are you feeling, just out of curiosity, because I'm definitely a firm believer, do you feel like, I mean, like you're putting yourself in the position that she was in, or you feel like you're part of the situation, like an observer? Because some people can observe a situation, some people actually feel like they're the victim or the person itself.
That's a great question, and I love talking about this stuff to keep it as simplified as possible for time's sake. I am my main sense is clairsentient. So a spirit comes through for me, or somebody from the other side wants to communicate with me, I will first, typically, like the, you know, hey, I'm here, is I'll feel their physical symptoms. So the fact that whenever I step out of the car and I start to feel, you know, dizzy and, you know, this kind of, you know, my heart starts, you know, speeding up and everything. And I'm feeling this intoxicating feeling. That's kind of how the clairsentient part of it works. I'm also clairvoyant and clairaudient, which is why I can, you know, I would see images of, it's like a real quick download, and you see an image of her getting into a car and what that car looks like. And then the auditory part is clairaudience, where I would, you know, as we're walking along, it's like, oh, the song pops into my head, and it's random things like that are not coincidental whenever you are opening up in an aspect of either a psychic reading or a mediumship reading. Those kind of things are like, pay attention to that, because that really is typically something significant.
It's not just why did I just think about Last Kiss?
Right. Yeah.
It.
And I sang in our video, I actually, not well, but sang it, because I didn't know the title of the song. And I looked at Nigel and said, do you know the song? It's like, this is what I'm hearing, so that's kind of how it works. But yeah, I feel, I see, and I hear.
Okay.
You also got some feedback that caused you to conclude that you don't necessarily believe that Gabriel Pena is the final instigator or the guilty party.
I feel like they really need to look at recent social media connections. I feel like that there is another male that kind of has stepped in recently into like her path that a girlfriend would know. And that she may kind of know them, but not, more on like an acquaintance kind of way, and not necessarily as like somebody like, oh yeah, they're my friend. So that's kind of where, like, I've kind of been pulled, like, it's like, and I'm sure if they have her phone, that, that they're looking through all those kind of records and stuff like that and everything. But I would
talk about a treasure trove, though. The fact that she left her phone behind has got to be huge,
right,
for the investigators. So yeah, I think just in the interest of time, it might make sense to kind of go over some of the other materials that we've gathered, if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and you may have seen some of this stuff already. I have a feeling we're probably running in parallel threads. But I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Let's see. Which screen am I going to share? It's desktop 2. Okay. Can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is going to be kind of nonlinear, and I apologize for that. I haven't really organized this into a real good outline. But Jasmine has also been instrumental in helping me kind of steer the direction that I go when I'm looking for information. But this is a screen grab from the Lee County Clerk's website of cases that Lauren was involved in. And we just recently learned tonight that the MH stands for mental health and that the DP stands for dependency. So these case numbers are confidential in nature, but we can get some idea what they're about by looking at the prefixes that are used. It also seems that the year in which the case occurred is designated as the first 2 digits. So we know, we conclude based on some review of social media and so forth that she did have a dependency related case with her daughter in 2018. And that has to do with, I believe, custody and things like that. The MH is mental health. We don't know, other than what's on the screen here, we have no idea what may have gone on. But there are 3 cases for Lauren that are out there.
I can kind of interject and give you my take on this, because I did study this earlier today. DP could mean dependency. It could also mean determined paternity, and which would also be a confidential case, because it's like with mental health, it's like a medical record in a way, so it would be confidential. And MH, yeah, definitely. I don't know if you guys know this, I do have a background in law enforcement, and then I did work as a paralegal for several years. That's my background in criminal law, and I have a degree in paralegal studies. So this court stuff is right up my alley.
Well, that's why we're talking to you guys.
But I did study this today, and I don't know if it's dependency or determined paternity. I don't know how Lee County creates their case numbers, but the mental health things, the only thing I can think of is, do you remember when Britney Spears went a little nuts and she had to have her father be like a conservator? Basically, she needed a guardian, even though she was an adult. That's the only thing I can think of that would end up take a mental health case to court. I mean, it's possible that there was a Baker Act here, but a Baker Act doesn't always necessarily go to court unless it's to a point where the person needs some sort of guardianship or some sort of extra help in some way. It's hard to even like speculate what it could possibly be, but
right. I have personally know someone and actually attended one of their cases as a character witness for them. And
for who? For a person unrelated to this case.
Unrelated to this case, yes. That would fall under this kind of category. And hers was, she had been involved with like a petty theft, but she had an underlying mental health issue. So in order to keep her from having to necessarily serve, a particular amount of time in jail for the petty theft, she had to go through, like various types of counseling and then like multiple appearances to make sure she was following through with her treatment program in order to not essentially have to go to jail.
So that would be a mental health court.
It's kind of like at least I know for Collier County, that's one of their ways that they try to work with and work with people with mental health issues.
But don't you think there would be a criminal charge to go along with that?
Well, that's what I said. The person that I'm referring to did have a petty theft, and it was more than one, which is what prompted this whole thing to kind of happen.
It could have been possession related. And possibly drug related.
And that was something else that I did pick up on, is that she has some issues potentially with some substance abuse. Definitely get that vibe for the past. And then in the recent future or
and the reason
in present.
We say that, we're not just speculating that because we don't want it to be about her shortcomings, but if there was something that she was doing that will help recover her, it's important. And we understand quite circumstantially that on the context of her earliest social media posts on Facebook that she was apparently going through some kind of a recovery process from some kind of chemical dependence. And so that's, I think, relevant. But
did you guys happen to find her criminal record from Palm Beach County?
No, we didn't get that deep.
Okay. Because we did.
All right.
I don't, but, and the thing that, I don't want to say it surprised me, but there's absolutely no drug charges. It's all theft. And there's one arrest for disorderly intoxication. But then there's, I think, 3 other arrests. This all in the year 2013. Because she lived in West Palm Beach before she came over here to Cape Coral. And she had 4 arrests. They were all in 2013, and they were all petty theft, basically. And one was disorderly intoxication, and one was defrauding an innkeeper. So I'm assuming maybe.
But that shows sort of a stability to where she doesn't have those drug charges, and that would have been her younger years too. So it shows that maybe it wasn't so prevalent.
One of the things I found interesting when I found the report, it listed her as homeless. So apparently there there is some background of homelessness, which is kind of usually sometimes goes hand in hand with either drug, substance abuse problems, or even mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, my first thought was, like you said, is there a substance abuse issue or is there a mental health issue? I was talking, Ken and I were just discussing it earlier, if possibly she has a mental health issue like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or something that would make her run. Because I know that you're not subscribing to that theory, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that she may have just taken off.
Well, if you take mental illness front and center, it's probably a good possibility, especially if she was, you mentioned schizophrenia, if she was delusional, if she was experiencing, fear and anxiety because of symptoms of that illness, like
right,
seeing things, hearing things, that kind of stuff, that could certainly cause somebody to just bolt.
Yeah, that was a thought that I had earlier when I was going through all this.
Well, that's one thing we do is we like to get every aspect, every possibility. And of course, 2 months prior, the most recent, and there's been a lot of podcasts done about it. And we have a lot of podcast friends on Get Vocal and things. And a lot of people were really hitting hard on the girl Madison Bell out of Ohio. She went missing. They brought in Texas EquiSearch. They raised money. They had members.
It was
of
national news.
It was national news, and she went missing. And her mother was crying for help. Everybody was there, and
she left her cell phone behind.
They found her cell phone was there. They left it. She left her car in the parking lot with her purse. All her belongings were in it. And the statement that they released on May 27th, almost a week after she was found, it says that the sheriff's office said the teen left on her own free will and does not want to disclose her location. And the parents said, we ask the public and media to respect our privacy during this difficult time while we are emotionally raw. So it's something to consider. Now, she knew all this stuff was happening because there were podcasts, it was national news. So I'm not saying that this is the way the case goes, and I don't want anyone to stop looking, obviously. That's not what we're pushing, but that's one thing me and Lauren do is try to look at every aspect of a situation.
Oh, and I think that's a great way to look at it. I think every aspect, especially with a lack of information that's being released, every angle kind of needs attention paid to it.
Well, one of the last things that she is indirectly quoted as saying is that she wanted to get out of the situation that she was in, to the guy who asked not to be identified, whoever he was. So that lines up with that theory for sure.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a theory.
So we didn't go so far as to look at the stuff that was going on the East Coast. We do think that it's curious. The relationship with Gabriel Pena has some colorful nuance to it. One of which is I'm going to pull this up on the screen here. This is an arrest record written by the arresting officer back in 2014 when Gabriel was arrested for assaulting his wife. And the only reason I was able to make the connection through to his wife, who is a woman by the name of Nancy Alverio, is because they accidentally didn't redact her name from all appearances in this, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But, we're certainly not trying to out her, but Nancy Alverio just filed for divorce from Gabriel Pena 2 weeks ago.
Well, what I find funny is actually they were married and they were actually divorced in 2012 and they got remarried and now she just filed for divorce, like you said, 2 weeks ago. Like, I don't know. I guess that happens, but it's a strange.
It's weird. But the nature of his relationship with Lauren as it pertains to Nancy is the thing that kind of got our gears spinning.
Yeah, there was domestic violence undertone in both the marriage and potentially in the relationship with Lauren.
So was he with his wife and Lauren was his paramour?
I don't know if
Or
it was a side piece thing or if he was living at home. I've seen him referred to as a live-in boyfriend in a couple of different news reports, TV news reports, which, I mean, I wouldn't want my spouse living with another mate. If his and Nancy's relationship was good or functional, then I would think that he would live with her at home and not with Lauren and her.
See, and this is the kind of information that I think that should be clear for the people looking for her.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's a lot of misinformation, I think, not malicious misinformation, but there's a lot of confusion, I think, that is causing things to get blurry,
there's a lot of just vagueness to the whole thing. Which, you know, that's why we started digging.
Right.
It's like, come on, even the guy at the park.
Yeah, he was very aggravated.
Yeah.
He was like, you know, he even, I think, stated in the video that you posted how he was just drawn to like a certain area, you know, and he had, you know, an interesting past himself where I think he was taking like a personal interest because of a traumatic incident, you know, that he had been a party to,
which was the disappearance of Tara Grant in
Michigan.
Michigan,
yeah,
in the mid 90s, I think it was. And it bore some similarity to this, but, you know, you could tell that he was talking to him. He was really on edge because
he wants answers, and he wants to know what's happened to her and why there isn't this information out there, and why you know, nobody's releasing anything. And, you know, there's a lot of frustration, and just the fact that he came up to two complete strangers in the park.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Okay,
to say, are you here for Lauren?
It happened in his neighborhood at a place where this disappearance was apparently one of the last places she was seen, was a place that he goes to every week.
Right.
I would be concerned too. People disappearing from a place that you spend a lot of time at it's not a real comforting feeling. But
we had somebody recently on our street disappear, and it was like, what?
Yeah,
they were found. So
good.
Nigel, you had said something about a polygraph, and you said somebody took a polygraph.
Yeah, we understand that Gabriel Pena took a polygraph, and that there's no official results as pursuant to that polygraph, but we know that he took one, and apparently he's not been arrested. So we assume that. I think I said I was curious about your opinion about polygraphs too, because I think you guys have expressed some interesting opinions about whether or not they work, maybe.
Well, I'm not a huge fan, and I would never take a polygraph whether I was innocent or guilty.
Neither would I. They're not. I don't feel like polygraphs are reliable. If you're innocent or guilty, it's not. If you're innocent, it's not going to help you, and if you're guilty, it's only going to hurt you. And it's not admissible in court, so I believe in polygraphs. However, recently, just a couple weeks ago, a client of mine is actually a retired investigator out of Kansas City, and he was telling me that there's a new thing that they're doing. It's a voice stress analyzer, and he said it's about 100 times more reliable than a polygraph. And I don't know, maybe things will be changing in the future, because if it's so much more reliable, maybe it will be admissible in court. I don't know.
Well, if polygraphs are unreliable, then 100 times 0 would still be 0, right?
Well, I guess you're right. Yeah.
I'm always mistrusting of that newfangled stuff when it comes around. It's like,
well, and I just think I'm like, all it needs is anxiety, like my anxiety, and I'm gonna have stress in my voice. So.
Well, one of the opinions that I have on those is if someone is mentally unstable, let's say like a guy like Ted Bundy who feels like killing is nothing wrong, he could pass a polygraph all day long because he's not going to show the effects or the
Absolutely.
emotional changes that someone that would killed somebody who's nervous about it, because in his mind he wasn't really doing anything wrong. So
Yep.
therefore it just depends on the person. I think they're good as sort of a baseline, to get sort of a baseline.
They're a
for what
good
facing.
investigative tool,
Yes.
but I still wouldn't take one.
But I'm gonna assume that he passed because there was no arrest made, unless they're trying to collaborate some other information on Gabriel Pena, assuming that, you know, she is indeed missing. And obviously he would be the last one really to see her alive because she left. The one question I had, I wrote a note here before I forget. You said they found a shirt that she has been known to wear. Do we know if she was wearing that shirt the day she left?
I don't know if that's been reported anywhere, but I think they've proven that it is her shirt. And they said that it was found, I believe, by her sister and a friend. And again, I probably shouldn't even be spouting this because I can't remember the exact details of it. But what's weird as hell is that the shirt showed back up at the park 2 weeks after her disappearance. That is something that is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's different.
But like you said in your YouTube video, there's like no possible way that somebody could have brought that shirt back and dropped it there without being caught on the cameras.
Yeah. Although there is...
we have to take into account, I think, when it comes to the cameras, the time of day, and some of the angles, because
even
depending on where they
infrared cameras after dark,
because depending on where they found the shirt, you know, the camera angles do cover like a vast area of that particular part.
Yeah.
But there is a part, if you kind of went back, where I was drawn to that one, where the guy came down and sat and talked to us. I was drawn to like one picnic table in particular, an area, and there really isn't much lighting there. It's close to the water, and it appeared, you know, there was quite a bit of partying that goes on there, just based on what we saw on the ground.
All kinds of like bottle caps,
you know, so I would think at nighttime that would be an area that probably would be easy for people to get away with something, because there was a lot of.
There's only one. There's floods by the building structure, but there's only one light pole in the whole park, and it's on sort of the west end of the park,
and
where none of the cameras are.
And it and the way it overlaps, it like would shine down like on top of one of the pavilion that covers the picnic tables. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily.
Well, I really
provide
like
much light.
I like Nigel because you put together the way the cameras are. I mean, in that particular area, if the shirt was found anywhere remotely close to that, I think based on what you put together, they would have been spotted on some sort of camera. But I guess you would have to go through every minute by minute by minute to see someone dropping a shirt, and I guess that might be a little tough too.
Well, there's another challenge with it too, and that's that. My background is in networking infrastructure and real-time networking and real-time media, which is what these cameras use. That's their core technology. It takes an awful lot of storage space, especially if it's 720p or 1080p, which all these modern cameras are. They're all high def. And I don't know what the exact ratios are, but they take up a lot of room real fast on hard drives. And so what happens is people who are operating these systems, they only keep their footage for a week, 2, 3 weeks, maybe. And all of the cameras are attached to Parks and Rec structures. I don't know how it is in Naples, but where I come from, back in Cleveland, Ohio, Parks and Rec isn't a real big spender when it comes to IT and servers and storage and things. So I can't imagine that they had like a tremendous amount of leeway in terms of the timing. And that concerns me because 2 weeks went by before they found a shirt. They knew she was
Oh,
missing,
okay.
but if the shirt was brought back to the park shortly after her disappearance,
they found a purse, but yet they miss a shirt. It just doesn't seem to add up.
And their family was supposedly searching the park twice a day.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I've got to assume means twice a day, every day. If that's the case.
So
yeah.
Is it possible, because I've never been to Freedom Park, is that what it's called?
For Freedom Park.
For
Freedom Park. I've actually never been to that park. Is it possible that the shirt was in the water and then got washed up during a heavy rain or the tide, or is that?
I hadn't thought of that. The location of the shirt has been described in two ways. One, on the sand, and the sand doesn't go to the water. There's about a 10-foot wide swath of rock and grass and debris that separates the sandy area from the water. So it's been described as being found in the sandy area, and then in another report, it was just simply referred to as being near the water line. In which case, if it was found on the sand, that's still pretty near the water line, depending on how relative you want to be about it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that is a possibility. If it was right near the water line, it could have been, and those canals are for drainage. They're brackish water. They have a lot of runoff, so they probably go up and down when it storms.
I mean, based on the gentleman we talked to and the kind of fish that he caught, it sounded like there was some pretty significant fishing. So there would be potentially a possibility of some decent water rise at certain points of.
Well, yeah, if mangrove snapper are coming that far into a brackish waterway, it's not like it's not mangrove.
Yeah, he fishes right off of the just right there by the building, and according to him, he gets snook and all kinds of stuff.
He gets the saltwater stuff.
Yeah. So
is that a canal or a lake, or what kind of body of water is that?
So the Bimini Basin is a lake that connects two canals, one of which goes to the Caloosahatchee River. There's a couple turns, but ultimately it goes into the river.
Right.
As far as like how far into the Cape it goes, that I don't know. But Bimini Basin is like the biggest lake.
Have they had divers go in that basin?
Yeah, they did have divers have searched the Bimini Basin. That much we did confirm. Yeah, we read that.
Okay. All right. I hadn't heard that. That's what
if she was wearing that shirt the day that she left and disappeared, then I'm going to be on a real high concern. But if it wasn't what she was wearing, then I'm going to assume that she had clothes with her and it got dropped or left. So I'm real curious on that one, if she was actually wearing that, because if so, that changes the dynamic of everyone's opinion. I really wish I knew that.
One of the other things that I had considered is nobody knows what the right hand and the left hand are doing, and nobody knows who's out there searching. So the other potential, like, kind of curveball that I threw was, how do we know that, somebody with a canine or something couldn't have potentially used an article of clothing and tried to use that as a method of search.
The challenge there would be knowing where to take the dog once you've got the dog trained on the shirt.
Right.
And maybe that's why it's so hush hush. Maybe that's why it's so quiet. Maybe they have an idea.
Well, one thing that's bothering me is her father reported her missing on the 21st. Why did her boyfriend of 5 years not report her missing? I mean, if I didn't come home for 3 days, I assume that my partner would, I don't know, call my family. Hey, have you seen her? Or call the police. Hey, she's missing. Why didn't he report her missing? Yeah,
we've asked that too. And the other thing is, I mean, like, somebody doesn't come home if the nature of their relationship is positive and how beautiful. Now I feel bad that the dogs are not.
Well, she always finds a way to sneak into one of these.
Yeah.
Ours too.
But they didn't say in the reporting of how the father notified police. There's nothing to say that he became aware of that she was missing because of Gabriel Pena. He cites the fact that she didn't call him on Father's Day as being the odd.
He was out in California.
And I, again, don't quote me on this, but I do think it's Florida, like part of Florida, like statute, or in order for them to issue an actual missing persons report for an adult, 72 hours has to pass before they can.
Well, they did a well check on her.
They can do a wellness check. Absolutely. Anybody can call at any time and say, hey, you know what? I'm worried about so-and-so. And, you know, this is their address. You know, and I've, in my work, we've even had to do it because they're not answering their phone. So we have to call and have the police go out and do a wellness check. That takes no time. You can do that anytime. But to actually make a report, I do know that there is
to allocate investigative resources to it.
That a certain period of time when it comes to an adult has to pass before you can file a report.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. Why wasn't? But we don't know that he wasn't. It's just that it hasn't been reported that he did. So
yeah,
and I don't want to,
right.
Especially knowing, you know, what we know about Gabriel. I mean, the guy's got his hands full domestically. I don't want to flail him if he's not
correct.
You know, really the bad guy here. But
and I mean, do we? You had found some stuff about the wife as well.
About Nancy Alvario. She's got some colorful history as well. She's been convicted for cyberbullying. She's had complaints of cyberbullying, I believe, more than one time. There's the interesting pattern of divorce with Gabriel. They're both U.S. citizens. Gabriel's Puerto Rican. I believe she's Puerto Rican too. So there's no issues with. They're not doing any funny business with immigration or anything like that.
Right.
Does she live here or live in Cape Coral locally?
Yes, she does live in Cape Coral, I think. I don't know if she currently does. I believe she does.
Does she have an alibi for the morning?
KDN at 873, would it?
I don't know. I don't think there's been any statements from Nancy that have been published.
Do we know where she was the day Lauren went missing?
There's been nothing that we have heard about her whatsoever. The only thing that, aside from past history with Gabriel, that we found in some of the court records, was the date of the petition for the divorce being July 1st.
Yes.
And here Lauren was missing as of June 19th.
Yeah. Although I don't think that the lid was off the fact that she was gone until the 21st. I think that's when everybody started paying attention.
Even so, you know, there's
somebody knew.
Yeah.
A handful of people did.
Yeah. And it sounded like, you know, she had reached out to I don't think it's just one person. I really feel like she's reached out to more than one person and kind of clued them into at least a little bit of what was going on. I know there's a lot of speculation about it. I don't personally have the best feeling about the outcome. But I don't know if now's the time or place to even speculate on that because there's so much that's not known yet.
Well, one of the concerns I had watching Nigel's video and doing the research that we did discussion was if their relationship was bad enough to where Gabriel may have been aggressive enough to go to this level, that is potentially the case where maybe he made her disappear, did something. it would seem to me that one of her friends would have knowledge of that. Like she would have said something to somebody, or there was a close friend, a family member, a sister, a brother, a cousin, somebody would have been put on notice that the relationship was bad, but we're not hearing that. And that's where I'm kind of leaning more towards maybe something else was wrong or something else happened. Two things just real quick, and I'll brush over them real quick and I'll get Jasmine's opinion. Well, actually first your guys's, but if you look at the mental health that we talked about earlier in the court records, the MH and the year being 20, is it possible that something that was this year, that maybe she was unstable this year, we don't know an actual month or day, but it was in 2020. So we're talking within the last 7 months. And to go with Jasmine, she said her feelingness was like loose or drunk. Would you maybe, is it possible it was like nervousness? Like she was nervous about something, like she was about to make a decision and she was nervous about it? Or did you feel more like it was inebriated feeling?
I feel, and I think I said it earlier too, I felt a combination. I felt substance abuse, and I did feel that adrenaline, that fear, that driving sense of fear. And that was like pretty much as soon as like my feet hit the pavement, I was like, whoa, it's like, what's this feeling? And it was, okay, it's like, okay, I feel like a little, like dizzy, like I had ingested something. And then followed with that was the racing, and I like even checked my pulse as we were there, because I was like, what's going on? It's like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my pulse definitely started racing as soon as I stepped out of the car. So again, I feel like there's a combination. I feel that in one way or another, there is substance abuse, be it Lauren or whoever she was with. As I stated, I feel like she left willingly.
You might have been vibing off of the assailant and not necessarily off of Lauren.
I feel like she left willingly. I feel like she got in the car willingly, with the intention that she was going back there in a short period of time. Like for some reason, I don't buy this. I'm just leaving my phone and my life behind. Yeah. I really feel like she thought she was going to be back there.
The purse though. As a woman, even if I was going around the corner to the 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee, I wouldn't leave my purse in a park. I'd bring my purse. No. You know what I mean? And purse being found at the park scares me.
And that's where I said like my initial vibe, what the first crime scene was at the park. I felt like there was an assault at the park that took place, and then from there, that fear driven, like where she's not has any control at that point of what's going on, and that's where this perpetrator has taken her away to a separate location. That's just my feeling about it.
Have you guys looked into the angle of her daughter's father?
We don't know very much about him. We know she's got a daughter. We believe she lost custody of the daughter in 2018, or possibly prior to her rehab, either in 2014, 2015, or 2018. But that's as far as I got digging through that.
Okay. Well, he is. I don't know that I want to put his name out there because it's not been in the news or anything, but he is in West Palm, and he does have an extensive criminal background. But again, there's no drugs, no violence. It's all theft, grand theft. There's different, some of them are felonies, but I feel like there's different types of crimes. There's drug crimes, there's violence crimes, and theft crimes. I don't necessarily equate that with violence or anything along those lines. And that's that's all I found really on him.
And my experience with people that I've seen that follow those kind of patterns are, using it as a means to get cash or, barter in some way. Like, I'll give you this for usually drugs.
Drugs, yeah.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why people steal. They risk an awful lot because
it's an addiction.
Yeah. People don't steal,
but then
because
there's also the mental health component of, if say somebody, if they were manic or, in bipolar, and by no means are we calling anyone in this case that, but, poor impulse control, certain aspects of that have to be considered too.
Yeah. Mania makes you do things you wouldn't normally do. Yeah. Whereas the opposite end makes you do nothing at all with bipolar.
Right.
Yeah. So a couple scary things in this case is, from the time that she was reported missing until now, there really isn't much difference. Nothing's changed. There's not, with the exception of locating the shirt in the park 2 weeks later, there's no new information. There's no hits on any of her. I'm sure that the law enforcement is doing what they call a numbers check, which they check Social Security's, credit card, driver's license. So there's no new information other than the fact that she went missing on this date. We found the shirt later, and then that's pretty much where we're at. Would I be correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any new information. I went back and looked through the one who is reporting on it almost daily is Wink News, but their reports are progressively shorter and progressively repetitive.
Right.
The family is still searching, yada, 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 and nothing new has jumped out. And
interestingly, the one thing...
Have you guys... I'm sorry, go ahead.
The one thing that I had mentioned right before you guys contacted us is that I was seeing 4 men in the water.
That's true.
And that's when we received your message, and I saw your post on Twitter, which was a picture that I had never seen of her in the pink dress, and behind her is a painting of 4 men in the water.
Yeah, that was another
with the water behind. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, so we're meant to talk about this with you, and hopefully that we maybe get some people thinking of hopefully some different angles. But I know there's a lot of stuff out there. The PI doesn't want any tips. They've come out and said that
the PI hasn't explicitly said no psychic tips, but the PI has said that for lack of a better phrase, that he doesn't believe in it.
Right.
And that he finds it unhelpful.
Right. So. And those are my favorite kind of people. I love a good skeptic, but I'm not going to, for even myself, there's a lot of unanswered questions. And for me, unfortunately, the validation I think is going to come when a recovery is made.
Odds are sooner or later. Yes. Odds are.
And I by no means want to upset anyone, but I do feel like this is a matter of recovery and trying to bring peace and hopefully answers and justice for Lauren and bringing her home, as the father said, in any way, in whatever way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Has Crime Stoppers been notified or done anything on this?
Yeah, Crime Stoppers is... they've been giving out the Crime Stoppers phone number.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the Crime Stoppers phone number on some of the, I don't want to call them memes, but like social media graphics and so forth on Twitter. Yeah. That's a whole nother angle that I'm glad we didn't get into.
Right.
There's
I think
definitely difficulties with Twitter that affected this effort negatively.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't want to. I'll just suffice it to say, shadow banning is a real thing, and these. The account that was being used to lead the tweet storm was shadow banned until a day and a half or 2 days after the date that it was supposed to take place. So they got anybody that they reached couldn't take advantage of the hashtag effectively to get the word out. And so that was frustrating as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So have you guys been in contact with anyone in the family or anything like that?
No, other than the only contact that we've had from a family member is ostensibly her sister, Lauren's sister, Cassie, left us a comment on one of our YouTube videos. I think it was the one that I posted yesterday.
Yours yesterday.
And she wanted to point out, because one of the points I brought up in the video is, who does it hurt to tell us where she worked? Wouldn't those portions of her networks be able to, okay, she worked at Ruby Tuesday. Boom. Now suddenly you've got Ruby Tuesday people that can begin to activate their intellect and start going after this thing too, if they care to. But they were so just sort of like wishy-washy about saying where she worked. They said that the father was quoted as saying that she had 2 jobs, which disappeared at COVID, and then that she had a 3rd job at Taco Bell. Well, okay.
Well, I know she wore a lot of Waffle House outfits for almost a year worth of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She did work at Waffle House. My understanding is that she got fired from Waffle House, and that was quite some time ago.
So that was the only one that I've seen.
The Ruby Tuesday I was not aware of, but Cassie let us know that she worked at Ruby Tuesday as well, and she wanted to reiterate that her sister was very hardworking, and we certainly have no reason to not believe that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
as it sits now, the people that have the case obviously would be Cape Coral PD, or is it Lee County Sheriff's Office? Who handles that scenario?
Cape Coral has it.
And then a private investigator has the case, and Crime Stoppers is involved, and there is a reward, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I think it's $8,000.
Okay. I just want to get that out for our listeners, because that way, it's.
Yes.
We have a lot of people that like to do research and look up.
Yeah, we'll probably record an intro and an outro for this with all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much information and so many angles to it.
A lot of blanks to get filled in, yeah. And they clearly know more than they're publishing, and they have their reasons why. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they're close to getting this thing finished up.
I hope so.
Because that's the ultimate goal. Definitely. That's the ultimate goal, is to find someone who's missing. And obviously you pray for the best, and you hope it is something as they ran away. But unfortunately, as we learn, as things grow and, we progress as a people, it seems like the worst is always what ends up being the case, sadly.
I brought up that one case that happened in Cleveland a couple years ago with Ariel Castro, and the guy that abducted 3 women and kept them in his basement for years. Somehow managed to keep 3 women imprisoned in his basement for a period of years.
And their child.
Yeah. It's like, what kind of shit neighborhood do you live in where people don't notice that something is extremely wrong?
Right.
But
yeah. Well, and that's something. She was a young, beautiful woman.
Absolutely.
The human trafficking angle is definitely something I'm sure that they have looked at, because it's quite possible that could be the case as well.
Well, that would represent a conspiracy, and that is our specialty. We do conspiracy theories on our show.
We do like conspiracies. So. Now I'm starting to be like, okay, now we're talking.
I love conspiracies.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I really
help me.
Yeah, we'll just have to talk off camera.
Here's a scenario where. Oh, absolutely. Well, here's a scenario where, okay, let's go. I'm unstable. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say human trafficking. So this guy talks to her in the park, like you said, and he hurries her off into the black Honda Civic 2-door. And here's a scenario where if that license plate number could just be ran or checked, maybe you might be onto something. Maybe it's a car of someone who has been, maybe they've been known to do human trafficking, or they've been involved in disappearances before. So
it might be worth repeating. It's you came up with KVM 873.
Yeah,
right?
and that was as we were here at the house. It wasn't anything that I picked up on at the park.
Before we even did a video or anything. Yeah.
Nothing. It was just you said we were gonna, talk about this. One thing that I'm adamant about is that I don't want to know anything before I go in to read something. So I would, if he tried to talk about it, I would be like, no, I don't want to know. I need to
and of
go
course,
into
the day we
this.
go to the park for you to do your read,
Right,
instantly
midway.
some guy walks up and starts dumping information about the case all
right,
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and then, and so I had to tell him, I said, is there, cause he brought up some other, impressions that psychics had given and everything. And my impression is vastly different from the impressions that he was stating. So then it's just like, I just know I just need to do my thing, and I need to just trust my own intuition. And I think that's, for the biggest thing for anybody, is to trust their own intuition, and follow the signs and where they're going.
Well, it's, what is it? Occam's razor, right? The least complicated explanation is usually the right one.
Simplest answer is usually the answer. Well, I would be frustrated, with the detective, or not detective, I'm sorry, but the private investigator. If you take a case like that, unless he already has some information or an angle that he's working, or information that he is certain of, why wouldn't you just accept some information and say, okay, well, I'll take a look at it? Because it probably wouldn't take him but 15 minutes to either find out if your stuff is helpful or if it's not, and be done with it, move on.
And in the case where I'm saying, before we did any, we literally just found the car in front of her apartment, like maybe an hour before we
were just reviewing the Google Maps, and it's like, oh, there's the car.
It's like, wait a second, is that looks like a 2-door import? Is that 2 doors and getting down on the street angle? And it's right in front of her apartment. This car that I'm describing that I saw her getting into. And it's,
which that would imply that the car's been there before, because the Google Street stuff is
right, which would lead
old.
you to believe that potentially either A, it's her car, or
she doesn't have a car. She doesn't have a license either.
That's correct. Yeah. Or
do we know why she
her
doesn't have a license?
It belongs to her live-in boyfriend.
I don't know why she doesn't have a license, but my understanding is that she doesn't drive.
Or somebody that lives nearby in her apartment complex.
Yeah, in her apartment, if you look up
it's like a duplex.
Yeah, it's like a side by side.
Are there numerous side by sides or just hers?
There's it appears to me that there's 4 mailboxes on Street View, so I'm guessing that there's 4 units in a building that looks like it might be 3,800 square feet under. So
yeah, but that when you have a PI that is like, we're not interested in that kind of information. It's
maybe that's an indication that they really do have a laser on something,
right? Yeah, and that they don't need it.
And
we can hope.
Yeah, exactly. That you took the words right out of my mouth. We can hope that that's where it's at. The number 23 came up for me, so I don't know what the significance of that number is.
I see Ken writing it down.
Yeah, I do. I don't know what the significance of the number 23 is, but the number 23 did come up, and I almost, I felt like the area that I was seeing her in was not vastly wooded, but that there was quite a bit of, trees and brush, and kind of like if you would see like out in the estates, well,
there was another psychic that gave feedback to the effect of tall grass, but also included alligators in there.
Yeah, no, I don't see alligators. I mean, I see this being like in a, more like in the outskirts of the Cape.
And we were contacted by somebody on Instagram who suggested that they thought that, for whatever reason, they thought that she had been transported to Pine Island.
That's true. We did.
And we didn't get very far on that because it seemed like a serious rabbit hole. There's an art gallery on the north end of Pine Island called Bokeelia art gallery, and
Was it her mother and
she said that she dreamt it.
It was what was the equestrian or Texas
Equisearch.
Okay, so right, is that her name?
I don't know if she wants to be identified.
Well, we're doing this as they were going to edit.
Now
That's why I was like, we're going on a little off here.
I can't stop. Yeah, I can.
No, but I mean, but you can. I'll
take that out.
This might be very valid, though, potentially in the future. But one of the searchers and her mother both had a dream of a very similar place
and I believe
that they described.
They were either here when the case broke, or they came here to work on the case at the Texas Equisearch volunteer.
Right.
Yeah,
so that was like a really interesting coincidence that happened, that both Lauren's mother and one of the people that came out to search both had the same.
I don't think it was Lauren's mother.
I thought it was.
No, I don't think. I've heard no mention of Lauren's mother. Period.
There were two people.
There were two people.
I was wondering where her mother is. Is her mother local, or
I don't know.
Who was the other person?
I think it was the girl who reported it, and her mother had corresponding dreams. Yes. Yeah. Lauren's mother is nowhere in any of this, as far as I know.
Okay. So
one thing,
the mother.
Yeah.
One thing I want to make sure I get in here, and the question that I have is, we talked about Gabriel Pena earlier, in the quote that he gave Wink News last week or the week before, whenever it was. His quote was, I'm worried and scared. Not scared because I didn't do anything, but I'm just worried something really did happen. Now, I don't know if that's because maybe he had already been pressured, and he'd already been pressured to where he felt like they thought he did something, or if he was just like, I'm not saying I did it because I didn't do anything, like that little boy or the little kid.
I think in our first touch on this, when we briefly, not when you did yours, but the deep dive one that we did with the other subject, I said, was that a double negative or what?
Yeah.
The way that was quoted, I was like, either
true.
There's a punctuation error, or
it's a double negative, but the guy is not a native English speaker either. He's a Spanish speaker. So
okay.
I think that I don't know that would be a Freudian slip or whatever. But and actually that quote is, the audible version of that quote is available on the internet.
Right.
I think it's on a Wink News video.
But when you read it, I actually said, repeat that, because it just, as soon as I heard it, I was like, there's something's, that doesn't jive very well.
No.
Well, hopefully.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not worried because I didn't do anything. It's like real.
Yeah.
I got to take this back.
But it also takes a certain kind of a certain type of person, a certain type of criminal, a certain type of psyche to be cool as a cucumber under that kind of pressure.
Like the Ted Bundy example that you gave earlier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, by no means do I think anybody to that extent, but
I mean, if I were Gabriel, I'd be shitting bricks right now. I mean,
considering his history, definitely.
Even of your friend who is a former NYPD homicide detective.
He said, actually, he said it was okay that we could.
Okay, so.
He said we could.
Quote him.
Yeah.
He said that he would have all eyes trained on Gabriel Pena.
Yeah. Steve DeShavi, who is.
How do I know that name?
He's they are filming episode 13 of the Dead File episode. I always say that season 13 of the Dead Files on the Travel Channel.
Amy?
He's
the Dead. Oh, you know that guy?
Yeah,
I love that guy.
He's going to be on our program in a couple weeks.
He'll be on our program in April. Or April,
awesome.
August. I'm having blah.
Yeah. Although hopefully we can have more of a lighthearted kind of discussion.
Yeah.
his social media stuff is pretty funny. He does a lot of goofing off with his friend Ray.
I don't know if you follow them or not, but
I don't, but I'm gonna have to now.
Yeah, but I did reach out to him with this and everything because of his background, because that's what he did. He was he's a retired New York City homicide detective, and he briefly looked at it and said, based on what he saw, his number one POI is the boyfriend. All right, so there you have it. Our conversation that we had with, once again, the incredible Paradise After Dark podcast. If anyone has any information, you're encouraged to reach out to the Cape Coral Police Department. You can also, if you want to remain anonymous, Crime Stoppers is offering a reward. The last we knew, we believed it was $8,000 for any information that would pertain to the disappearance of Lauren Dumolo.
I think there are some strings attached. I think it may be leading to an arrest, actually. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so we hope that you enjoyed the conversation. We hope that you found it engaging. It's not our usual jokey, funny kind of South Florida stuff that we normally do. This is not Florida Man. This is serious stuff with a woman who just vanished.
Right.
Please follow us at Tipcast239 on Twitter, Trouble239 on Instagram, Trouble at trouble239.com if you'd like to email. And, of course, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher for our regular podcast episodes. If you want to reach out to our friends Ken and Lauren, Paradise After Dark, at Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter, and we do recommend their Patreon Insider. I think it's some pretty cool stuff. They have a lot of great bonus material, including this. So as we say here in Paradise, stay out of trouble. How do you turn this thing off?